The little ghost who was a quilt. Once there was a little ghost who was a quilt. He didn't know why he was a quilt. His mom and his dad and his friends were all sheets. They were light as air. They flew high and fast, and they twirled and whirled in the sky. They could even ride on a gust of wind, and they went whoosh back to the ground, like they were going down an invisible slide. The little ghost who was a quilt was heavy because of his layers of fabric. It was hard for him to lift off, and he was a slow flyer. He got hot and sweaty when he tried to go faster. The only time he attempted to twirl and whirl, it didn't end so well. Looks like he's at the bottom of the stairs. You think he went bonk, 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 bonk. One day, he and his friends were at the park when they heard something coming. His friends zoomed away because ghosts were terrified of people, but the little ghost couldn't escape quickly enough. He flopped over a bench. A family came along, and a little boy who was eating an ice cream cone sat down next to him. The little ghost had never been so close to a human before, and he felt fear in every fiber of his fabric. The boy only stayed a few minutes, but he dropped a big blob of melted ice cream right on the little ghost's face. Oh no! Later, when some other ghosts saw him, they laughed and they laughed at the stain on his forehead. The little ghost was embarrassed and also quite sticky. The little ghost didn't like being different. No, his mom told him he had an ancestor who was a checkered tablecloth, and his great-grandmother was an elegant lace curtain. Everyone had said she was the most beautiful ghost that they had ever seen. Even though that he knew that, the little ghost didn't feel any better. He wished he was just one fabric and not a whole bunch of squares together. The other ghosts called him Scrappy, and he didn't like that very much. But there was one day that always cheered him up, and that was Halloween. People seemed excited about ghosts on Halloween, and sometimes children even dressed up as them to trick or treat. Every year the ghosts went to watch the festivities. They stayed silent and still in the trees and pretended to be decorations, far away from the humans. Too heavy to hover, the little ghost who was a quilt usually draped himself over a clothesline. He never had a good view. This year he had a better plan. He remembered how close he had been to the boy at the park, and so he decided he would be brave and folded himself over a chair on a porch, right in the center of the action. Halloween night came, and the little ghost flew as fast as he could, but it was only halfway across the lawn when he heard people coming. At the last possible second, he flopped over the porch rail. A mom walked up the driveway with a little girl dressed up as a ballerina. While the girl trick-or-treated, the mother asked the man at the door something. The next thing you knew, the little ghost flew off, and the mom had picked him up. He was so scared he thought his seams might come unstitched. The mom wrapped the little ghost around the girl and put them on a wagon. The girl had been cold, and now the little ghost was keeping her warm. He could hardly believe what was happening. They headed down the street past his friends in their tree. "No, don't go," one whispered. "What are you doing?" The little ghost decided to fly away as soon as the girl got out of the wagon to trick or treat again. But the mom didn't turn in the next yard, or the one after that. By the time she finally walked up to her house, the little ghost was panicking. How would he get away? The mother parked the wagon and carried the girl and the little ghost inside the house. The little ghost didn't know what to do. He reminded himself to be brave and stay calm. The little ghost peeked around the room, and there were Halloween decorations everywhere. He even saw a branch from his lollipop ghost. They looked just like his friends in the tree. The little girl tucked the little ghost, who was a quilt, under her legs as she sorted her candy into piles. He felt surprisingly cozy. Maybe things would turn out okay after all. The girl ate a chocolate bar and when she wiped her sticky fingers on the little ghost, he didn't even mind. After the little girl was asleep upstairs, her mom gently folded the blanket, and she smiled and admired the fabrics and traced her finger across the line of the stitching. It tickled. She set the little ghost on the couch and went upstairs too. When she was gone, he flew into the fireplace and out the chimney. His smile was 3 squares wide. The little ghost friends cheered and rushed over to him. They were so amazed by how courageous he was, and they wanted to hear every detail of his adventure. They flew slowly along with him all the way home. The little ghost was so happy that he felt like he was floating without even trying. Everything that had happened was because he was a little bit different. Everything had happened because he was a quilt. The end.